Hi everyone, I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, and your host of Need to Know, the #1 baking entertainment podcast, where we dive into tips, trends, and tasty tidbits that bakers love most. Whether you're a long-time listener or just joining us for the first time, welcome. This week we're doing something a little bit special, a handpicked collection of our favourite moments from past episodes. These are the conversations we couldn't stop talking about, sharing, and replaying. So whether you're in the kitchen, on the go, or just here for some baking joy, this is your chance to relive the best of Need to Know or discover what makes it so beloved. So let's jump right in.
We could just take a deep dive into cake and all things birthday cake.
That sounds good.
Great.
I'm all about birthday cake.
Well, for starters, what is your favorite kind of birthday cake?
My favorite kind of birthday cake came about, actually, my favorite one now is Swedish princess cake. Because I used to live in Santa Monica, as a lot of people know, and 2 blocks down from our house was Sweet Lady Jane's, which is a famous bakery in LA, and became famous because it was Oprah's favorite bakery. And maybe she also actually loved the princess cake. I can't remember that now. But there's a local bakery, and they sold princess cake, and that was the first place I had it. And I will tell you, it is kind of funny because I would have thought like this is not going to sound great, but it is fondant over the cake. Mm-hmm. And then there's a layer of marzipan inside with like frosting and nice moist cake and some jam and stuff like that. But it's kind of like the cake has marzipan and rolled fondant. I don't know if I would like that. It's so delicious.
Yeah,
so
I've never
yummy.
even heard of that.
It's super yummy.
It sounds so good.
It's a traditional Swedish cake, right, Ami?
Yes. I actually don't know the answer to that.
It is. No, it is.
Do you have a preferred birthday cake?
Oh, gosh, I mean, I think I usually tend to gravitate towards anything chocolate. Mm-hmm. But I've started to get a little bored with that. Like, I think I would always go for a chocolate cake with like a ganache frosting, and something really rich. And the last time I had one of those, I was like, it's just so much, So I've been actually on the hunt for my new favorite go-to birthday cake. But I feel like chocolate would still be involved, but maybe I would mix it up with a coffee buttercream or, something a little different. Caramel. Yeah.
Raspberries.
Yeah.
Something fancy.
Or just some contrast to the chocolate of the cake.
Well, that just talking about types of cake, you're in the market for a cake. I thought we could talk about a couple places here in Los Angeles. You've already mentioned Sweet Lady Jane about how much you could get a birthday cake for and pricing versus should you buy a cake from one of these places or maybe try to make one at home. So at Sweet Lady Jane, you can get a 6-inch cake for around $85.
Oh my gosh. The price has gone up. 6 inches.
Yeah, 6-inch cake.
No. I mean, I actually, I'm going to say that's a good price.
Really? Well, it's even cheaper at Milk Bar. You can get a 6-inch cake for around $56.
I have to say I've had Sweet Lady Jane's different cakes, and their most famous one that you'll see a lot online is the berries one.
Yeah.
It's like cream on it's like a whipped cream frosting, whatever, on the outside, and then berries and stuff. And that's nice. I've had a few different ones. I have had I went to one of George's school friends' birthday, and the mom ordered Milk Bar, and it was like their classic kind of like naked cake, but it was like lemon curd and blueberries, and it was this whole big layered thing, and then the crunchy crumbles, and it was insane. Mm-hmm. It was insane.
You had me at blueberries. That sounds amazing. And then there's also Magnolia Bakery, which it didn't have a specific for their 6-inch cake, but it said their cakes range from about $45 to $120. Mm-hmm. So just lots of different pricing here. But Ami, you said that $85 is actually really good.
For us, I've on and off sold cakes. I used to do it a little bit more than I do now. And there is a lot that goes into making a cake from scratch. The time it takes to make those layers, to make the fillings, to make the frosting, to assemble the cake. They're not really cheap, and they may, maybe the handful of ingredients you're using, if you're not using chocolate, which can be expensive, and if you're not using nuts, which can also be expensive, they don't necessarily cost a lot, but they can be complex. They can take hours to make, even the simplest of cakes if you're really trying to do everything from scratch, make all your homemade frostings and stuff. So I do find when I see a cake, a 6-inch cake for $85, I mean, would never buy a cake. I would only ever make them. Yeah. So, I've never, ever gone to any of these places and bought a cake. But I understand that pricing. I understand why something would cost money like that.
We've talked multiple times, I feel like, on this podcast about Ami's cake business, or that you used to make cakes a lot. And I just recently went on your Instagram and actually looked at some of these cakes. They're in some of these designs you've done are insane. Like I was like, what? It made sense because I now know you so well, and we call her our fancy lady. And you make these fancy cakes. Yeah. How did you get into that?
Mostly it's just like it's a creative pursuit. It's somebody wants a cake. Sometimes someone will just ask for a cake and they want a certain flavor, and and I can kind of go to town with the idea. Sometimes for kids, it's been we're doing a Moana party, or we're doing a disco party, or we're doing a Transformers party or something, and and then I get to like make a cake that like looks like that is on theme, which is really like I actually have found making these crazy birthday cakes for kids has been super fun, and it's as much a it's just a challenge for me. Like, how do I make a cake that fits in with the theme of this party? And like how, sometimes there's questions of gravity, or there's questions of, or if it's really in the summertime and it's really hot and you don't want things to slide around. And sometimes, people will just like, I just want this flavor. And then, you can make it look however you want. And then I can just make something that looks pretty. They're all so different.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about trying to grow this business, someone had suggested, why don't you just like come up with 10 cakes and those are the cakes you make. Mm. And those are the cakes you always make. And I kind of felt like that sort of took the joy out of it for me.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like I thought, well, that's not the kind of business I want. I love it when somebody asks me for something specific. They want a specific look or a theme or a color or a flavor. And then I get to, bring my own thoughts and creativity to it. Mm-hmm. So it definitely becomes more of I almost want to say it becomes an artistic pursuit and a creative pursuit.
Yeah, for sure it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Gemma, I know you have an affinity for Costco.
No, by necessity, not by choice.
By necessity. So I wanted to know what you think about Costco's sheet cakes as an option for a birthday cake.
For those of you who are listening, Costco is a wholesaler here in the US, and they make a lot of big, take-home stuff that you can buy, like big pizzas and pies, like literally a $6 pumpkin pie that is huge, roast chickens. One of the things that they are famous for is sheet cakes. And it's just a big slab of, usually white cake, right? And then they will customize it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, your question was, what do I think about it?
Yeah. Or what do you want to know?
I will tell you. I want to know, I'd love to know how many they sell a year.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to know how much money they're making on those cakes. I want to know where it came from. Whose idea was it to start selling these like slabs of cake? I think it's genius. But I will tell you that ever since I do love a cake that is like incredibly soft and frosting that's incredibly soft. And sometimes you only get that from like mixes and frostings that are not all natural.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a texture person when it comes to my desserts. So I do love the texture of, and then also it's like it's very vanilla-y.
Yeah.
I'm fond. I can appreciate a Costco sheet cake.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did some research just because I was so curious about it too, because they are so widely known. So because we were talking about prices of some of these more private, like Los Angeles bakeries, here's the price for a Costco sheet cake is $18.99 for half a sheet cake, and that serves up to 48 people.
Well, there you go, right there.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
That's your answer.
that's your answer. And it weighs 9.5 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And then something that I think is so funny about Costco cakes is that the process is very archaic. Like you have to go in person and you fill out the little form and you drop it off at the bakery and, you know, say a Hail Mary that they got your order. Like there's no confirmation really.
Like in a little slip box?
Yeah, you put it in a little box and then that's it. And then
because they've no thing in a Costco to announce like, hey, Joanne, come up here and get your cake.
yeah, you just have to like,
Is it you do it the day you're there?
I think you have to do it before.
Oh, like
Yeah.
a few days
Yeah.
before, and then
I mean, you know when to go back.
right, right.
Or like if you're wanting something special, like specific,
Okay.
I guess. But I mean, no, you can also just buy them
Right.
right there,
Yeah.
you know, untouched, not personalized. But if you want it personalized, yeah, or yeah, you go back. I don't. That's what I'm saying. It's archaic. It's an old way of doing cake, I guess.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
18 feeds almost 40 people. And I've seen it. And
Almost
they
50
do.
people.
They do. Like they feed because everybody gets a little slice.
yeah,
For $18. Wow. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with that, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, I think too, it comes down to what are the needs of the cake?
Yeah.
Right. How many people? And then
Also, like everybody has had Costco sheet cake. Nobody is going to say like a hard no to a slice of Costco sheet. Just eat it. It's delicious.
no, but what would be some tips for home baking birthday cakes?
This is probably the opposite of what Ami's going to say, but I would say for me, keep it simple.
No,
when it comes to decorating.
you know what? Okay, logistically, if you're throwing a birthday party and you're making the cake, say you've got a kid or a friend or whatever, I would say make your cake layers a week, 2 weeks in advance. Cool, let them cool, wrap them up really well, and freeze them first. It's cakes stay really fresh that way, and that way you're not. And then you can make your frosting. Everything, all of your elements, you can make your frosting, put it in the fridge or the freezer, depending on how far in advance you do it. Make all the elements of your cake without assembling them all in advance because you're going to be busy. You're throwing a party, you know, you want to make a nice cake. Then the day before, you can bring everything up to temperature and assemble your cake, and then there you have it. I think like that would be my biggest bit of advice for making a birthday cake.
Yeah, assemble it the day before.
Yeah.
And do not bake a cake the same day you're going to assemble it because that is not going to go well.
Yeah, I have done that before, and it's all hot and melty.
Yeah. It
And
doesn't
it's
quite
crummy.
work.
Well, it's because the crumbs are fresh, so you try and decorate it and all the crumbs go through your thing.
Yeah.
Very tricky.
And if you're trying to do something, you know, more involved or creative or a design, look, if you see a design on TikTok or Instagram that like looks really incredible and they make it look really easy and you think, oh, I'm going to do that. It's not easy. It's never as easy as they say. It's never, ever. I have made so many cakes and I can't tell you how many times I have been like, but I saw this on Instagram and it looks so easy. Just no, cut yourself some slack, have a plan B. Remember, in the end, it's just sweet and everyone's going to be glad to eat it. And give yourself way more time, just room for error if you're trying to do something experimental.
I will say my last thing is that I've done George's birthday cakes. Have I done all of them? And we all know my decorating skills. I can decorate the outside, that's grand, but I'm not going to be like piping fancy stuff on it. But what I do is I go online and I say like 1 year was Mickey Mouse, 1 year, I think last year was ninjas or something like that. I buy the characters, I buy cake toppers, I buy the characters, I buy whatever, and I dress the cake that way. Oh. And I make it look really good without having to do designs on the actual cake.
That's I feel like that's a good way to have that theme without like stressing out about it.
For sure.
So, yeah. I think it's so important too to talk about how your positioning of Bigger Bolder Baking has always been from this place of authority. It's homemade ingredients, you know. I think that resonates with a lot of people. And it was in this time too before TikTok and Instagram Reels and like it. I think you were kind of set up for success. I mean, in the meantime, since then, you've had other recipes. Here I have homemade ice cream, more than 100 million views. breads and doughs, more than 50 million views. And then a series that I kind of want to take a deeper dive into is your basics. So things like homemade butter has more than 50 million views in your bold baking basics series. So I'd love to move on and just kind of talk about this idea of budget baking. How can you have these really great homemade recipes, but that are also affordable? So I'd love to hear from both of you just some tips on setting yourself up for budget baking.
So, often to go back to our basics, one of the reasons that they were popular is because they were accessible, but my alternative, not all the time, depending on which country you're in, but often the alternative that I gave was cheaper than going to the store and buying the certain ingredients, cream cheese, butter, the extracts that we have, condensed milk, is cheaper to make, evaporated milk, so many of those homemade basic ingredients. So depending on where you live, homemade ingredients can often be cheaper, which is great. Or it can actually just be easier to make it, not have to get into your car and go and buy condensed milk, which ends up kind of being cheaper because you have to get in your car. I will say when you are specifically budget baking, I would say just, before you head into it, I think Ami might agree with this, is just like cater your menu to your resources. You know what I mean? Like I would stay away from expensive ingredients. Like, maybe don't do a lot of chocolate recipes. Maybe don't make recipes that call for specialized extracts and spices and things like that. You might only need one time, and it might be $10 for a bottle and you're only ever going to use it twice. Maybe stay away from embellishments like edible gold and like those kinds of things. Stick to pantry staples you can buy in bulk, like your flours and your sugars and things like that. And then I would say what I often do is I'll look at what I have. If somebody asks me to make something, I just got a message today about making something for a fundraiser. And in those circumstances, like that's obviously donated, right? So I have to be careful now about what I'm going to spend on this. And it's for a lot of people. So I will cater my menu to like less expensive ingredients. And what do I have at home? And one thing like a lot of bakers will probably, this will resonate with them, is something like based with egg whites. Ami and I, after our shoots, every single time you're here baking, we end up with a bag of egg whites. I say bag because I put them into a bag. We just don't have bags of egg whites lying around. But we always have, after big bulk shoots, tons of egg whites. So I will base, it could be like angel food cake, or, it could be macarons, which are labor intensive, but like I will look to see what I have first and how I'm going to utilize that, because those hang around in my freezer and I've already paid for them. And if I can utilize them, it's eliminating waste, and it just, makes whatever I'm going to use that for like so much cheaper.
For sure. Ami, do you have any tips?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely say like there's certain ingredients. If I'm working within a budget, I'll try to stay away from chocolate, anything that takes a lot of dairy. Dairy ends up, butter can cost a lot. So if you're making a cake that has a lot of frosting, you can easily go through a pound or a pound and a half of butter just making the frosting. And that's expensive. Nuts can cost a lot. So if you're looking for desserts, affordable desserts, you find something that doesn't include that. And that would be something like an oil-based cake instead of a butter-based cake. There's like lovely cakes that so many people love, like zucchini cakes or carrot cakes. These kinds of ingredients are cheaper. Applesauce as a base. And then if you do want to do a chocolate dessert, try to find one that's made with cocoa powder instead of chocolate, because that tends to be a little more affordable. I also think if you do sort of a cake that just takes a little dusting of powdered sugar, something that doesn't need a lot of frosting, you're gonna end up spending so much on just all of the embellishments themselves.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely even say like go for like a little goes a long way desserts. So like a big bundt cake like a big pound cake that might take a lot of butter and eggs and dairy to make, but everybody needs just a little slice, and you really don't need to do much with it, but a little fruit or a little whipped cream.
Yeah.
Or even a cheesecake, which is, again, contrary to what I said, a lot of dairy, but you can feed 20 people on a single cheesecake. You give everybody a little bit after a meal or something. People don't really need that much of it.
I love a good cheesecake.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to mention were like an apple crisp. Always so good. Apples are often really inexpensive.
They are, yeah.
It takes very little dairy. They're really simple ingredients, and it's just a lot of bang for your buck. Really, like there's just like it's so good.
Good for feeding a crowd.
It's good for feeding a crowd.
Yeah,
and
I like the idea you mentioned about the fruit, and I one thing is just stay away from strawberries in December. Like don't put your hand up and say I'm going to make your wedding cake and it's summer fruit in December. It's not as good quality. The flavor is not there. It's more perishable generally, and it's way more expensive. So if your fruit is an expensive kind of luxury at sometimes, you know what I mean? So, just definitely be careful about using too much fruit and out of season.
Right. And also just the last point, if you see a sale, but you don't need something, but you're going to bake a lot and you have room in your freezer, you have room in your pantry, buy in bulk when you can. Flour, sugar, these basics that can last a while. Flour can go bad. So, you want to be careful about how much in bulk you buy depending on how much you bake. Egg whites can go in the freezer, cream, cheese, butter, even milk can be frozen. There's a cream, depending, there are things that can be frozen and kept. If you have the space and you see a sale, stock up. Yeah, you always have that.
That's a really good point. We use buttermilk, kind of, rarely, but when I need it, I need it. I know we have our own substitute, which you can make at home. And if you ever have milk that, like, if you're traveling, like if we're going to Ireland the next day, and if I have milk left over, I'll actually turn it into buttermilk and stick it in the freezer.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Isn't that a good idea?
Yeah.
But other times, and I often see this, like just to your point, if you see something on sale, I often see buttermilk on sale in the shop up the road from us. And when it's not on when it's not even on my list, I'll get it, I'll bring it home. You have to do it straight away. Otherwise it sits in your fridge and goes bad. Put it into 1 cup measurements, because that's what I use it in usually for pancakes or soda bread, 1 or 2 cup measurements. And I label it and I pop it into the freezer, and then I always have it. Stuff like that. Get kind of crafty about it. Because I mean, like what's you do save. Every little bit helps.
Yeah.
Well,
so with all these series that you have on Bigger Bolder Baking, you're starting a budget baking series.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know, like, what kind of inspired that series, and then how do you and Ami approach the recipes? Like what you're going to put in that series? What's like your process with that?
So it's a little bit of what we just talked about, where we eliminate a lot of those ingredients and things, and you have to get more creative. You have to get more crafty, don't you, Ami?
Absolutely.
So, for instance, we released a budget $5 gourmet pizza. There's a few things that we have to go through. We go through the recipe. We pick the recipe first. Then we have to do the pricing of it. We break down the pricing. And sometimes the recipe that we say, like, this is the recipe. We put the pricing on it. You're like, hey, this costs $7. Like, for the pizza, this is too expensive. We need to change the flour. Then we have to go back to the drawing board and whatever. But it is very carefully curating the recipe, and then pricing it out and seeing are the results like what, because the part of the series is kind of like, high-end good quality, high-end gourmet results for an inexpensive price, and always cheaper than what you can buy in your your local pizzeria or whatever. So the pizza was for $5. It was a gourmet pizza. It was made with 0 flour, and it wasn't lacking in the like fancy ingredients. There was a hot honey in there that I show you how to make, soppressata, which was half of the price of the pizza. But when I got the other ingredients priced down, we could have $2.50 of soppressata. I had fresh mozzarella. It was beautiful dough. I did make it in my pizza oven, which it did happen to make it extra lovely. But it was fun, and it really makes you get crafty and creative about how you do this. And then Ami, we decided to approach the birthday cake idea, because in LA, not everywhere, but like if you go to some of our standard, the most popular bakeries, birthday cakes cost $60, $70, $80 for not a huge amount of people. So when I went to Ami and said, how can we make a cake for $5? Like she had some really good ideas.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, that was like when, with all the cakes I've made, I usually find that my biggest expense is the butter, that you just go through so much butter as if you're making multiple layers. And so it was just about how do we eliminate as much butter as possible using an oil-based cake. The frosting, the 7-minute frosting, I don't think there was any dairy in that.
There wasn't, but you know what we used? Egg whites.
Egg whites, right. So again, then we can like pull from our freezer.
Yeah. From our from our bags of egg whites.
I think that's so important though, that idea of reusing, or like if a recipe only calls for the egg yolk, using the egg whites, like there's so much waste.
I hate waste. Ami doesn't like waste. And, I think it might be a cultural thing with me. Not that in my house, I grew up with a mom who was very strict on waste or anything like that. But I think just inside me, just as somebody coming from Ireland, I just feel like, I've traveled quite a bit, and in kitchens, you see a lot of waste and unnecessary waste. So, I don't like to see it personally. I don't like to see it professionally. And I don't want to be contributing to it. I heard a statistic like on an ad or something on TV where like every American throws $500 worth of food in the garbage every year. $500. Now that's an average. So like some people are doing way more and some people are doing less. But all I could think of was like not in my house. Like not in my house. And you do absolutely have to throw away some food. But we go through, we have days here of like leftovers. I don't cook vast amounts. If I do, and we have excess, it gets frozen into dishes, and then meals are put into the freezer. We're so careful. When we have our big shoots, I will any excess foods that like myself and the girls will try stuff. We'll take stuff home. We'll share it with family and friends. But anything else that's like fresh and whatever, we pack it up. I'll put it in the freezer and I bring it to George's teachers. I'll take it out, refresh it, put an icing on it, dress it up, get George to put some sprinkles on or something, and bring it to the teachers. Recently, when we had the absolutely devastating fires in LA, I took them to different fire stations here in the valley. Stuff like that where I'd love to have zero waste when it comes to food. So I utilize my freezer like nobody's business. And then I just get like really crafty, just like the way Ami said.
Yeah. And also, like things like that you would think you could just throw away, like your cake trimmings, when you're evening cake layers, you've got scraps, you can put that in a Ziploc bag. And then if you've got some extra buttercream from something else, you can make cake pops. And all of a sudden you have a whole other dessert, or like, brownie bits or something on the edges. I mean, you can use that to sprinkle onto a sundae, or, there's like ways to use things. I mentioned a couple months ago, I was unmolding a bundt cake and it broke in half. And I was like, what do I do with this? Went in the freezer. And then, a little while ago, I made a trifle. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what else? If you have children, you're listening to this and you have children, kind of any age really, that those kinds of scraps, bits, are great for kids' activities. And I will say that even when I've had a dough, this is maybe when George was a little bit younger, but even when I had a dough, for whatever reason, it didn't work out, I wasn't happy with it. And I was going to throw it away because because we weren't going to bake that pizza off because it wasn't good or whatever. I would give the dough to George to roll, to cut, to pull, like Play-Doh. Yeah. And he would abuse it. And then 45 minutes later, he'd be like, see you later, and gone. Right. And then it would go, and then I would like put it in the compost or whatever.
So I will say this, it's like sometimes I think, what am I going to use this for? I have no ideas, these scraps of whatever, this little bit of dough. I don't like the way it turned out. And sometimes it does end up getting thrown away, but before I throw it away, sometimes I just put it in the fridge or put it in the freezer for a couple of days and think, let me think about it for a second. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can use it. Yeah. Maybe someone can play with it. Maybe something. And sometimes I can't think of anything, but instead of just quickly cleaning up the kitchen, throwing things out that I don't want, I'll let things hang around for just a little while, think about it, because something might pop in my head. Oh, I could use it for this, or I might have a little more energy. Sometimes you have a big baking project and you're tired and you don't want to think about making another thing.
Yeah.
Often. So and emotionally, sometimes I just want to throw things away. Like I don't need that little bit of buttercream. I don't need that. And if those things can last, and even in the fridge, they don't have to go in the freezer. They can last for a couple of days, and you might find use for it.
I've made that mistake of throwing away buttercream, thinking it's been hanging around for too long. And you told me and cream cheese frosting, put it in the freezer. And that's what I do now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely 6 months. If you've got a deep freezer, it'll last a year. If you've got like a regular freezer and a regular fridge, 6 months for sure. Any buttercream would last.
I texted Ami last night and I said, can you make some crepes?
And I'm
that
really
don't
grateful.
involve me. Yeah. And they look legit. They look gorgeous. So we're going to bring them in. We're going to heat them up, and I'm going to show you just how like the way we're going to dress them like the way I grew up.
Perfect.
Eating them.
Great. Ooh, these smell so good.
So thank you, Ami, for these beautiful looking crepes.
Absolutely.
I see you followed my instruction perfectly.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to get in trouble. So you scatter over some granulated sugar. This is a little bit brownie because it's organic sugar. I use this for us. And then you get a little bit of fresh lemon. At home, I will tell you, my mum did often use the little squeezy lemon.
Like the lemon
bottle?
juice, the freeze
In the bottle.
Yeah.
It looks
She had
like
5 kids, so you can't blame her.
No,
she's busy. No time to squeeze fresh lemons.
They probably also weren't as easily available as they are for us in California. Probably shouldn't have lived the other side, right, Ami?
Yeah.
Now, okay, I'll do this one's upside down, so I'll do this one. So a little bit of sugar.
So I have to say, Gemma,
Yes.
I know you did grow up with this, but I have to say,
What am I doing wrong?
no, you're not doing anything wrong. But in my humble opinion, you need the 2-tiered approach. So you do the sugar and lemon.
Yeah.
You fold it in half, then you got to sugar and lemon again,
Oh.
and fold it in half, and then you get a properly lemoned and sugared crepe.
Easily convinced.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I
I'm
have
just
to
going
say.
to do it to keep her quiet.
Yeah.
Here, there you go. Is this good enough for you?
No. You got to
What
do
about that, Ami?
You got to do it on the half.
like
You got
that?
to. You're not doing it. No. You got to like.
I got
You gotta. There you go. Now you're gonna fold it over. Now you got it. There you go.
okay.
See. Now you butter and sugar this side. No. Lemon
no,
and
that
sugar.
side, that side,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
side.
Now you
Okay,
lemon
okay,
and sugar
okay.
this.
Okay.
Trust me. It's right.
Okay.
It's right. And then you'll be like, oh, that's right. No. Lemon.
Oh,
You
sorry,
gotta do
sorry,
lemon.
Sorry.
Go on.
I'm nervous. You're making me nervous. Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be my holiday, Ami.
That's the way you do it. It's the two. It's the two.
These are crepe.
Now shut it and eat it.
I'll tell you what, guaranteed this is going to be delicious. I'm going to say like, that is a lemony crepe.
You better. I don't want to hear anything else out of you.
It's going to be perfect. I'm going to say, oh, right. Who lemoned this crepe?
Who lemoned your crepe? Huh?
It's so good. Now, I know you this had lemon and sugar, and you had mentioned, people have put Nutella and berries. Yeah. Do you ever have savory crepes?
Savory crepes, yes. And I remember when I was at Ballymaloo Cookery School after college, and they showed us how to make this great recipe. They did a mushroom a la creme there that literally went with everything, which was mushrooms and cream cooked down, and they put it on pasta. They put it on roast had it roast chicken. They did it with so many things, but they used to put it in a crepe. And like to what Ami was saying there, she's talking about the amount of sugar. I don't think my mom put sugar into these batters, and often you will see that they don't put sugar at all. So if you don't put sugar in your batter, it will lend itself to both sweet and savory. Mm-hmm. And I remember I've had them before with chorizo. I'll tell you what's really good in one of these, really good, a fried egg inside. Mm-hmm. Some like avocado put in cold, like not cooked after. Like I said, like chorizo, sausage meat, cheese, ham. Oh,
yeah, so
I've had one
good.
with smoked salmon before.
yeah, smoked salmon and cream cheese.
Yeah.
Yummy.
And
Dill.
you can make if you're making only savory crepes, you can make them out of buckwheat flour.
Oh, that's true.
And basically the similar proportions. You could probably find a recipe online. And those are called galettes, but they're basically a crepe with buckwheat flour. And those lend themselves, they're nuttier, they're more savory in taste. You do definitely need to let that batter sit, preferably overnight. And then ham and cheese, eggs.
Yum. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening to wherever you listen to podcasts. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and let your friends know about Need to Know. And we will see you back here again really soon. Thank you so much. From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.